Hello everyone. This is the instruction video for our very first so-called in-class exercise. In this exercise, I'll ask you to just reflect on some of the things you learned from reading the first half of the Tao Te Ching and watching my lecture video about it. Everyone who answers the questions in this exercise fully and remembers to click "Yes, I'm done" will receive full credit. This is not meant to be a test, it's just meant to be a simple exercise to get you to think about the content that we've discussed already and what it would look like if you tried to apply it to your own life. So let's just review what we learned already. First, in your reading and in the video lecture, you learned that the Tao Te Ching advocates a withdrawal from public life and a decision not to chase after things like pleasure, wealth, and power, which are valued by most of society. You should also have learned that this refusal to chase after commonly valued things is related to the text's suspicion that these values are arbitrary creations of language, because language overly simplifies the world. So, in the first part of this 4-part exercise that you'll begin in a minute, I'll just ask you to write down 3 personal goals which you are hoping to achieve in the next 10 years. For example, I want to get a high-paying job, or I want to get married, I want to run a marathon, maybe I want to finish my BA, or I want to go on to graduate school, or I want to start a successful business. Whatever is your own personal goal, write down 3 of those in the first question. Next, in the second question, I want you to think carefully about those 3 goals that you just wrote down. What is it that each of those goals represents? Try to express this value as a pair of opposite adjectives. So, for example, if one of your goals had been you wanted to be successful, then if we were to turn that into opposite adjectives, you could say that you wanted to be rich, not poor. If your goal was to get married, your opposite adjectives would be that you want to be loved, not unloved. If you wanted to run a marathon, then maybe the opposite adjectives would be that you want to be strong, not weak. So whatever your goals were, just try to imagine what are the linguistic categories that represent the foundational values behind your goals. Next, for question 3, think about those pairs of adjectives, and for each of those pairs, ask yourself if the difference between them is absolute or relative. That is, does each word correspond to something certain in the world, or do they just seem different when compared with each other? For example, if your goal is to be a movie star because you want to be famous rather than unknown, what does it mean exactly to be famous? Does it mean that you could count 100 million people who know your name? Would 100,000 be enough? Is there any objective standard? Or does it simply mean the opposite of unknown? This is getting to the heart of the lesson of the Tao Te Ching on language, which says that values come from binary pairs of words which are defined only in relation to each other and don't necessarily have stable and objective correlations in the world. Then finally, for part 4, if you have a goal because it expresses a relative value, does that mean you have been fooled by language? Are you just chasing your goal because the value expresses something society agrees is good rather than because that goal has some actual foundation in the world? Is it possible to identify life goals which are better in an absolute, objective sense, independent of the language of human values? Now, from what you've learned about the Tao Te Ching so far, you should know that the Tao Te Ching probably believes that there are no absolute objective values that can be expressed well in language. But of course, this class is not meant to make you into Taoists. So if you believe that there are absolute and objective positive values which you can base your own goals upon, that's fine. Just be honest. It won't affect your grade for this exercise. Finally, after you've answered all 4 questions, please remember to go to the last question and click on Yes, I am done, and then press Submit. If you don't answer that last question, you won't get credit for this exercise, so it's really important that you go ahead and do that. Okay, give it a try